Hey everyone, Alex Gray here, and welcome back to the International Classroom Podcast. Now, this December, it is the season of giving, so we're going to switch things up with something exciting. Conversations into the fascinating world of educational platforms. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to be showcasing 12 innovative platforms that are transforming education around the globe. From cutting-edge tools to ideas that are reshaping how we teach, you are going to get exclusive insights straight from the creators and visionaries behind these platforms. And of course, I've got a few extra surprises up my sleeve. So, join me as we explore these technologies and discover how they are shaping education in our international classrooms. On to the episode. We are joined on the International Classroom Podcast today with Jon Ford from YouHQ. Jon, welcome to the podcast. Whereabouts in the world do we find you today?
I am in Maidstone in Kent. So, yeah, about 50 miles outside of London.
Amazing. We've had this, but what's the weather like with you?
Yeah, pretty shocking, to be honest. I've got fed up over the last few days of I wake up fairly early and I'm walking the dogs, but I feel like I haven't actually gone to bed because it's still pitch black. So in the UK now, yeah, it's about 6-7 degrees, and I haven't seen the sun, so it's been pretty cloudy. So knowing where you are, I'm fairly jealous.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say I'm envious of the UK weather at all, even with this winter break that is coming up. But for our listeners out there and for our viewers out there, Jon, how would you like to introduce yourself to them today?
Yes, I'm Jon Ford. I'm the CEO of YouHQ. We've developed a platform that is helping young people learn the skills to succeed. It's become one of the leading wellbeing platforms internationally, and yeah, it's all started from a bit of a crazy idea that I had 5 years ago. I'm very much into my sports psychology, sports performance, and yeah, I came up with a bit of an idea that I want to try and get kids to be able to set goals, do the type of things that I do generally monthly, review my goals, set sort of really ambitious goals, and I really wanted to try and create a platform that could help young people do that. And yeah, I've sort of fallen into a CEO of a software company that's trying to help schools globally. Had no real ambition to go international. It was really just trying to create a platform to help young people, and we immediately sort of fell into the international school market with people inquiring about the product, and yeah, we've gone from there. So yeah, myself, I'm a qualified psychotherapist, don't necessarily practice that anymore. I'm more really a performance and wellbeing coach, that I spend most of my days working on the platform and working on the business, to be honest, these days, rather than actually practicing with people and coaching.
So you're, I'm going to read into it, it's like a coach turned coder. There we go.
Well, so definite coach, but the coding side of it, no, I'm not the coder. I'm not the techie. I pass that over to our amazing team of developers. I don't do that type of stuff. I'm fairly good at product managing of, getting things in sequences and that type of thing, but definitely not on the code. And yeah, I didn't, I suppose, answer your question very well, really, because I sort of went around the houses there. But yes, I think the problem is when you start off in life doing a certain job and a certain profession, and then it turns into something else. Sometimes you actually have lots of different hats. So I could call myself an entrepreneur. I could call myself a sports psychologist, a performance psychologist. But yeah, I think I'm going to stick with probably just entrepreneur, performance psychologist.
I like that. I like a lot of the conversations I've had recently are, I think, moving away from this idea of silos and specialisms. And you kind of just embody that quite nicely, in that you've navigated through and acquired a host of different skills and approaches, and have not labeled yourself with one thing and stuck with that. You've diversified or pivoted or grown. Yeah. There we go.
Grown, yeah. I think we're always growing, aren't we? So
definitely. Unfortunately, over this month of time, I am growing in the wrong direction, Jon. But enough of that, my personal struggles and strife there. I'm interested, though, in terms of, because you mentioned the international side of things, and we've got personal development and well-being. Why do you think it was really latched onto from schools internationally, about addressing the well-being of students and the personal developments of students?
I think from my perspective now, like working in schools in the UK, we've got a school in Chicago now, but the Far East seems to be, and I think this all came really from Australia, that they seem to be way ahead of the game from a wellbeing perspective. We're here, some of the first versions of an app like YouHQ were created in Australia. And I know from the UAE's perspective, the KHDA's Wellbeing Matters framework was very much created when I think a team of Australian school leaders who were sort of very, I should really know the name of these people, but they came over to the UAE and I think they advised them on the framework. So I think though the schools were anywhere east of the UAE in the world they're very much on the wellbeing, that wellbeing should be one of the main focuses in education. And then I think the further west you go, it becomes less so. That's obviously a big generalisation, but that's what we see. We see schools already using platforms like YouHQ, that side of the world. And then we're like in the UK, there's a huge issue and there's just not enough funding. The systems aren't in place to be able to support people in the UK. And that's a very developed, obviously we're one of the most developed nations. So yeah, I think the international market has really lended itself to our product. So we've the product market fit was very quick, has been really, really easy to find or easier to find in the international school market compared to, the state school UK model, which again, I never like to come across that I'm criticising teachers or schools in the UK. It's got nothing to do with them. It's the system that is fundamentally broken. And I think schools in Asia, schools in the UAE, they have systems in place, and the system is way better set up for implementing a product like ours.
So talking about implementation then, how would these schools and educators typically integrate sort of the app or the platform into their study programs?
So it tends to become part of a form time or a tutor time in the UK. I think class activity, form time activity generally. So it's a Wellbeing Wednesday morning time activity where a child will come in. They will be able to register, do a check-in, a digital check-in on our platform to say how they feel, which we know is really, really important, not only for yourself, but to self-reflect and have a thought about actually how am I feeling today. But it also gives that communication to the tutor that, we've got a child here that's feeling really good, or that maybe could be pushed, but we've got a child here that actually is really struggling, and we need to sort of give them some time. So it's normally a morning activity on a Wednesday. We call it Wellbeing Wednesday. There's obviously lots of other things that align with that, but yeah, we tend to use that phrase for our check-ins. Schools do it at lots of other times as well. Like you can have Tuesday check-ins, lots of different phrases you can use, but implementing it into a curriculum where it is a regular thing is really important. And I think the schools that are getting the best out of platforms like YouHQ are having it built into their curriculum, their personal development curriculum. Ideally, you want to be doing more than once a week. It'd be great if you could do it twice a week, but generally speaking, with everything else in the curriculum, once a week seems to be about right, sort of a 10 to 20 minute check-in. I think what we're finding is it's becoming very powerful, being able to pick up on those kids that are flying under the radar. We immediately found and we've seen stats where, our platform and platforms like ours are picking up on between 5 and 30 kids for every 1,000 that you wouldn't be picking up on if you weren't doing this type of digital wellbeing strategy.
Fantastic. So walk us through then in terms of, what it would be like for a student using it and the kind of standout features that are there that support educators.
So our platform has it's a student voice survey tool. So the idea is this is your hub for student voice. So we're hearing that this is really, really important, especially in education, having that, getting kids that feeling of being a belongingness, giving them the option to be able to reach out and say how they feel, so you can understand your students better. that's the whole survey tool. And I suppose there's some people that would argue, well, you can do that in Google Forms, you can do that in Microsoft Forms, you could do that in just a standard survey tool. So we have lots of different features within that make it way better than just a standard Google form. But then what we do on top of that survey is we then have personal development tools, character education tools such as values-driven goal setting. We have content that is tagged to the emotion that the child's feeling. So we're actually offering that what next to that child, and it's very student-led. One thing we're really passionate about and what we've become accustomed to hearing is that there is a lack of student agency around their own well-being, and especially in schools in the UK, is that there isn't necessarily the support there for them. These kids that are struggling, there's not enough support. So what we're trying to do is hopefully give these kids, give young people some tools to be able to build their own self-care toolkit, their own resilience, and be able to support themselves. Yes, they can still reach out for that adult, but we're trying to build that sort of resilience is a often well overused word, but build those tools for self-care so they can help build the agency and look after themselves.
And what's been the feedback from students having used this then for a period of time? Yeah,
funny you say that. We recently put a feedback form on the app, a student-led feedback form. My co-founder Jez is all about, it's a student-focused platform, so we really want to know what they're thinking. So anonymously, kids were able to give us feedback, and I'll be honest, I was very scared of what these kids were going to say about our Wellbeing app, but we were pleasantly surprised. So I think we've had around 1,000 bits of feedback in. We've got about 85,000 users now, and the feedback, we're at 4.1 out of 5 stars. So very happy with that, and they could the schools we got the comments through as well. So it was amazing, and you can go to our website, but some of the feedback has been really phenomenal. So we've got kids logging in on a Sunday nights and it's helping them sleep. We've got kids saying this is my safe space to be able to say how I feel. So some really sort of heartwarming things that kids are saying. Yes, there's obviously kids that come on and say silly things on the feedback form, but generally speaking, for us to get over 4 stars out of 5 when it's a student-led and they can say what they want and it's anonymous, we're really chuffed. So, yeah, generally, I often still feel surprised that our platform is being liked by so many people and is being engaged. But I think that's that English modesty thing. I'm almost like, oh my God, they actually do like it. But it's been really good.
This image in my head of you like, they like me, they really like me, type of like that actress thing. But that's obviously a good thing, and should validate then the platform in itself and the work that you guys are doing. But it's also then what it allows teachers to do. Because obviously, even though this information is there, you aren't necessarily the ones who are acting on it, are you? There's got to be something that's relevant for educators to be able to have that impact. It's like, so how does it work for a teacher then? If a student goes on, if it's my form or whatever, it might remind me of, say, year 12s, and they fill out these forms, like what happens to that information? How do I then as an educator start to use that and do things with it to help benefit the students?
Yeah, so the system will alert a member of staff if a child registers a low mood. So I guess the key the survey feature is that you will be alerted that you have a child in your class. So what we're hearing is, even if you have a really tight-knit class and you think you know every kid and you've got amazing teachers, there will still be kids that are actually not feeling good, and there's something potentially serious going on at home and you've got no idea about it. So it will alert you via an email that there is a child, and it will say what mood they're on, what type of emotion that they're feeling, and it will give you some insight into them. So that's, I guess, the basic, most bluntest tool that we have, but it's really powerful. So you become alerted. You have your own app, so you log in and you can actually see their own pastoral report, so you can see their mood and well-being over time. So you can start looking at that. And then what we do differently to sort of the our competitors is that the values-based goal setting and the character education tools gives you real insight, holistic insight into that child. So numbers are really important. So to be able to see that a child's mood score has dropped, and it's dropped from a 4 to a 3, and their World Health Organization Wellbeing survey, which we run every 2 weeks, is a percentage score may has dropped or has gone up. Actually understanding that child has just set a goal that they want to become an Olympic athlete, or they want to start running, or they want to start doing stuff like outside of school, then actually that gives you that extra level of conversation, that extra way of being able to connecting and actually tutoring them and mentoring them on different things. So that's really important. And also their values. So we're a values-driven company. We've got values based in the platform. So kids set their own values about what's important to them, what characteristics do they believe in. And you understanding that as a member of staff also gives you greater insight. This all came about, Jez, my co-founder, sort of why we ended up leaning on this more than maybe just the tracking, was that Jez was my co-founder was a teacher at the time when we first started the platform, and he was our guinea pig when we first built the MVP, the basic version. And he said he was finding out stuff about his kids, and he only had 15 kids. He was at private school. The information he was finding about some of the kids that he was working with was incredible. Like, he didn't know that there was a child in his class that was racing go-karts for England. He had no idea. So suddenly that connection builds because you understand a little bit more about what's going on. So yeah, there's lots of other stuff in there. We have a safeguarding integration as well with CPOMs and My Concern and some other providers. So lots of other toolkits, but I guess those are my two. That's what I hear about most when we speak to teachers.
I was going to say, yeah, because the integration part would be a very valuable one. So from our side, like, I've worked in schools that use both CPOMs and My Concern, and to be able to have those integrations, I imagine, would be extremely useful in terms of being able to flag and act and therefore track incidents that go with.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Whenever we mention the safeguarding integration, we never, this again, not something that we built the platform to become a safeguarding tool, but it actually, as soon as you're measuring and you're taking in student voice data, it becomes, especially around mental health and wellbeing, which predominantly some of our surveys are about, then it becomes a safeguarding tool. So we immediately became aware that actually we are a safeguarding tool, and that's why those integrations with My Concern initially, and then CPOMs, and obviously CPOMs are in 20,000 schools internationally, huge business, and they're, I guess, the gold standard because 90% of the schools that we speak to use CPOMs. And that integration that's now been automated as well is super important because it's adding that level of data, it's just building that picture up. So you may have teacher-led safeguarding information going in against a child's chronology, but then with YouHQ's data built into that, it just builds that real full picture of that child. So if there is something that's up, teachers can really act, and it's all about surfacing the right information at the right time. So it's just making sure that if a child is struggling and there is a trend potentially, and there's something else going on that's being added by another member of staff, it can be pulled together and acted upon. Yeah,
you kind of emphasise there. Obviously, there's, from an education perspective, there's multiple, almost like trivial pieces that fit together, don't they, to make up the child. And we kind of refer to it as holistic education, and trying to be, cover all those pieces. YouHQ emphasizes and really works on, and we mentioned there, in terms of growth, personal growth, and obviously there's different components that go with that. But on the other side of education, we've also got academic achievement. How is it that you can work? How is it that you are, working with schools and helping schools strike that balance? Because we both know, and you would have been in enough schools, that there are some schools out there that are maybe too much on the academic side of things and the impact that has. Yeah. How do we go about striking that balance?
It's a really, really good question, actually. So we do sometimes, our content and our vision is everything non-academic, I guess. So the goals on there, initially, when we first created up with the platform, is very much as a wellbeing platform. This isn't a place for academia. However, there is lots of evidence that suggests that if a child is doing well at school and is successful in their grades, they will generally feel better about themselves. So I think if you completely say, actually, we don't want any academic goals on here and it's not about academia, then I think we're missing a trick, because actually I think if we find that there are kids that are just focusing goals on purely health, then they're actually missing a component of what could make them feel good. So we do have currently, kids can set goals. The school is bespoke enough that the school can actually dictate that, what they set their goals around. But what we really want is a blend. And we actually are about to release in January our new, I think it's 5 Ways to Wellbeing. Jez is my co-founder, sort of leading on that. It's a balance. So there's 5 areas of your life that you can set your goals and values within. And one of those will be around learning. So I think, as long as there's a balance of your goals. So, if you and staff and students will be able to review this, so you'll be able to see your balance of goals. So you might be focusing all of your goals on one area, then that's probably going to not work out that well. So it's about trying to cover all bases and have a sort of a balanced approach.
Fantastic. Exciting to hear about that as well. So we look forward to seeing that in the new year. And obviously you mentioned there we've got goals, but there are also things like, obviously we talk a lot about this, about skills. And obviously in the world we're coming through now with resilience is one thing that crops up a lot, self-awareness, adaptability. Like these are the types of things that we're hearing and seeing more of, and students need more of through school to obviously, I don't know whether it is successful is the right word we want to use, but that's kind of what it's been kind of connected with. What role do you think the platform like YouHQ can play in fostering and developing those skills?
So I think it's about, for me, it's about trying to build the wellbeing literacy of the child and building that growth mindset. Our platform is very much built around a type of therapy called acceptance commitment therapy, which is a type of CBT. And the whole model of that is built around something called psychological flexibility. And it's about trying to get kids to have that growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. So I think really that's what we're trying to aim for with our platform, and enabling kids not to have, it's okay to feel crap at times, but it's also really important that you try and do something proactive about your own mental health, or you're proactive about being fit and healthy. So I think it's about teaching what we want to do with YouHQ, and we do YouHQ live sessions as well. We go out and do coaching and stuff like that, is trying to give these young people the skills to be able to live in the world that we currently live in, where there is going to be hard times, but they're going to be able to deal with it. So, and that's why we have the self-reflection tools. That's why we have the values, character education tools. That's why we have the PERMA-led resources that we're creating. So we have all of these tools on there to be able to support our young people and help schools enable them to build their own agency. And I think agency is one of those things that keeps coming up, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think rather than just being a wellbeing app that just tracks wellbeing and not gives them the opportunity to say how they feel, again, really important, it's giving them what else can we do? What else can you do to help yourself?
You mentioned something in there which has that connection with the Australian teachers about PERMA. Can you just elaborate on that for us in terms of what it is for those people who maybe don't know?
PERMA is a framework. I won't go into a huge detail. Jez, my co-founder, he's our resource. He's the guy who's leading on our resources. It's a framework, an evidence-based framework for wellbeing. And what we are going to be doing is linking our content to that. So you'll be able to, on our platform, be able to see how well a child is learning against the different areas within PERMA. We know that there are lots of different frameworks, but PERMA seems to be one of the most profound and strongest used within international schools, which is why we're going down that road. Yeah, I only asked because at my previous school we had it integrate, and when you mention the Australians, funnily enough, there's lots of schools, but there's a more massive school in Australia that's really, really good for that positive education, for the PERMA models that comes into it. So when you said that, I was like,
That was my piecing it
Yeah,
together.
yeah. I think what we've done, we found one of the most profound things we've found with when we've gone out to schools is we're finding these members of staff that are pastoral leads that are really passionate around wellbeing, and our platform has grown because of them. Like we initially came up with some ideas about what's really important for young people, but actually we take the feedback from these amazing staff that we speak to, some of these sort of real leaders in these schools, and they say, this is what we're using, this is what we need, and that's what we build. So most of the stuff that we are building is coming from the feedback that we're getting from schools and from students.
Amazing. So obviously that having that, let's say, contact with lots of different educators from lots of different schools, even though you might go, I'm not really an educator, you have your ear to the ground of lots of different things taking place within education. So I'm curious if there's any particular trends that you're hearing about and excited about for the future.
Yeah, I think my perspective is quite unusual because I've got a psychology background. I've a very much business background as well. So I sold a business to be able to do what I'm doing now. But I also have two daughters, 14 and 16. One who's autistic, really struggled through her years at secondary school, still struggling now. So I have that as well. And then I've been thrown into this last 5 years of visiting, and I've probably I tried to work out the other day how many demos I've done to schools. It's probably in the thousands or over 1,000 now. And there's me, psychology background, business background, and I'm just literally hearing what these people are saying to me, especially in the UK, safeguarding leads about, how tough it is, and, like ridiculously tough. And I think, oh my God, I don't know how these people are functioning. Like they're on CPOMs until midnight, putting in stuff onto CPOMs. And I know it's not just the UK. There's segments of teachers that are, overloaded. So I guess for me, it's just how much of an issue there is. Like, I think people try and maybe say, oh yeah, it's just, it's just a generational thing. But there is so many issues out there with young people from a mental health perspective. I won't go into my thoughts on why necessarily, because there's a lot of reasons. But yeah, there is a huge issue out there, and I think that just drives us even more, and me personally. And I see it with my own kids. I see it on a daily basis. So yeah, the trends that I'm seeing, and one of the biggest trends is sleep. So there's a huge issue with kids being able to sleep. I mean, it's bonkers. Our platform, anonymously, we pick up data of why kids are saying they feel good and bad, and it is sleep, like 150% higher than any other attributor. And our competitors say exactly, or reporting the same thing. So that's probably the biggest thing, sleep, as a thing that I'm speaking to, and just the amount of issues that young people are having. And yes, they're, through time, kids have always had issues with different things, but we're obviously being able to pick up on it maybe a little bit earlier, hopefully.
Yeah, I would highly recommend people listening to this. Matthew Walker is a sleep expert, Berkeley. I think it's Berkeley University.
Yeah.
English guy, funny enough. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Highly recommend people going. What he's done, yeah, completely agree. And following on from that, I'm going to ask you this because you've got to be seeing it, you've got to be mindful of it. Is the sort of the influx of AI, and obviously there was we talking about now, month and a half, 2 months, the student the 13-year-old, I believe, who committed suicide. It was found himself into some sort of relationship with an AI bot. And obviously emotionally from there, it's terrible. It's absolute terrible story that goes with it. But unfortunately, for all the positives that we might talk about with the technology and AI moving forward, student well-being and mental health that we're talking about now, this is a danger. It's I'm using that word because that's really what I think it could be to it, if the intent and the use of it isn't there. Like, And yeah, I'm just going to ask you, and you don't, but what are your thoughts really sort of regarding the use of AI, things like having it in Snapchat and being able to form these kind of relationships with it? What do you think?
It's a really, really good question. And it's something that has been on our minds for the last 6 months. So we were toying with the idea of building in, because of the lack of psychologists, the lack of support services for young people, not being able to get a counsellor for 4 years with kids with mental health issues on CAMS in the UK, just horrific stories of kids not being able to get support. And then stories of AI bots that are trained therapists that can help people. You start thinking, as a software provider for Wellbeing, you're thinking, is there a possibility where AI could help reduce that waiting list time? Could it help support young people? And we went, no, because my other co-founder, one of my other co-founders is Dr. Alistair Bailey. He's a clinical psychologist in the NHS who we lean on a lot for stuff like this. And I think if society gets into the habit of trying to get their young people to go to a computer for help over a human, then I think we're in a bit of a tricky situation. So we are on the front side of our platform. We are never, ever going to build a wellbeing bot that can help support a young person. We'll tag, and we tag our resources to an emotion, and we've curated that resource. So that's a human saying this resource is good, and the school actually has control over that as well. They're the controller, so they can say whether they want that resource to be shown. But actually a child going onto a platform and saying, and, I've seen the Snapchat, my daughter uses Snapchat, and, there's an AI assistant on there. And I think it's a really dodgy area if you start thinking that it's right that a child can use a computer to get emotional help. That said, I use AI on a daily basis now for productivity, and we have goal setting in our platform, and I've tried it. And if I wrote into ChatGPT, I want to become a doctor, write me some pathways of how I can do it, 95% of that would probably be excellent, like information. And in a year's time, it's going to be very, 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 it's going to be even better, isn't it? So I think there's parts of AI that could be used to help children set goals and that type of stuff. But from an emotional health perspective, 100% not.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I've seen there's something on social media, the TikTok one, about putting into it like the day in a life, I think it was, and it comes up with the types of things that you need to be doing and should be doing in terms of that. And I think that way, in terms of trying to self-regulate and plan and prioritize, it's like a friend of mine from the military, very much a military upbringing in terms of the people I hung around with, what I wanted to do, but it's like the 7 Ps. It's like proper preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. It's very much drilled in. And that type of thing about, and you say it to students in terms of planning and prioritizing and preparation, it's like, even time management. So all these things that we're talking about, the skills that we want, it's difficult. Like you layer that on top of, right, you've got your academic, layer that on top of enrichment, layer that on top of tutoring, layer that on top of sports commitments, friends, social. It's lost into the ether a lot of the times. It's a massive challenge. It is a massive, massive challenge moving forward, like looking at it, and I think it's important that we are at least having a conversation and trying to do something about it. And you are proactively doing things about it to help students and to help staff, move that needle forward. So definitely.
I think for us, the other side of it is AI, I believe, will be very powerful in the analytical side of it. So to help you with the data on the platform at some point. Oh, yeah. So saving that teacher time so then they can spend more time with a child when they've got an issue is probably where we want to be, rather than it solving the issue with the child. It would be reducing the teacher workload. So that's I think probably where we'll end up going.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way in terms of a lot of the things. And I'm the same. I use it constantly, day in, day out. It's on my phone, my laptop. I use it for numerous different things in terms of my team, I have bots, GPTs that are set up to work with me and ideate with me, and I use them to come up with different things. And data analysis, and obviously private data analysis, removing stuff, but it's amazing. Like for you guys, if you've got that data enclosed and safeguarded in a platform, in a packet, AI agents that you could implement on top of that to go in and pull out the information and really extract and aid in and support teachers to then have that. Phenomenal. Same with we have pass surveys. If all that's encapsulated in a the safeguarded area, and you can use these agents to go and do it, you are saving teachers time by identifying at-risk students or anything else like that. And then obviously it's down to the teachers or the people working with yourself to then go, right, what are my strategies? And that's the human connection. Because as we've established, no computer is going to, solve an emotional issue of a student. You need human connection for that. And if you can allow teachers, like you're saying, to spend more time to build connection, to build rapport, to establish those things, most definitely, most definitely, completely.
Yeah, the connection side, that's what we're aiming. That's what our aim is. So actually, if you built an AI bot on the front end of our platform, you're going to completely shut that down. So, yeah.
Amazing. Well, it's kind of the good and the bad there, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's what it is.
The genie's out of the bottle. So it's again like phones, like there's certain things that we have to try and curb. And, I continually want at my 14-year-old daughter to get off her phone. But then it's about role modeling. But again, it's out with AI. I think it's out there. It's now teaching our kids. As kids, we've got to get them to understand what it is, the dangers of it, and also how powerful it could be. Like use it to help, draft some emails or something. I don't know. There's just, you've got
definitely in terms of like the amount of admin work I have to do. When you said it then, it's like sounded so simple. It's like of all the things we could do in the world, help me draft emails. It's like, I have to make about 50 emails a day. Of course I want it to help me with that.
Right. You read them as an answer them as well.
Definitely. But it's just like, and this is the thing, we talk about modeling it. I'm probably the worst, and my wife has to remind me of this. And I have this conversation, and if you actually ask educators, and most people, it's like, so not just about how long you work, but think about the type of work you do. How long do you spend? And I'd be like, geez, I must spend 8 to 10 hours on my device, like laptop. It's got it here. It's all there. A day, 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours on a laptop. And so, and only when you take a step back and reflect on that and you think about, geez, how am I modeling that? And you justify it. For me, I would try and justify it away and go, but I need it for work. I've got to do emails. I have to write lesson plans. I've got to create everything digital. I've got to do that. And then once you go down that slope of trying to justify it, kids will do the same. It's like, Dad, I'm using this for learning. It's like, how is TikTok helping you learn? And it's like, because micro learning. And because there are great people on TikTok. Matt Green, one example. Fantastic work on TikTok. There are educators out there. There are people out there who are providing. And it's like, can't argue with that, can I? And it's a tricky one. But you're right.
It's like Instagram, isn't it? Like Instagram is, for me, fairly toxic in certain ways. But I go on there, and I'm a fairly big golfer, and I love performance stuff. And it obviously picks up on that really quickly. The algorithm picks up on it, and I've actually learned stuff from it. Like I've got better at things from it. So this is the thing. There's pros and cons to all of this AI tech phones. I just think I like what Australia are doing. I just don't think young people should be given the chance to use it until their brains are at a certain level. Their brains have developed and they have the systems in place to be able to cope with what they're being shown. And that's why I think 16, what Australia are doing is quite revolutionary. But I think I actually think that's going to be fairly common in a few years' time.
I think it will get there. And it'll even, we talk about computer literacy, don't we? We talk about AI literacy as a massive thing, and we don't really know what that is yet. But showing them the skills of how to navigate through that. And an interesting conversation with someone earlier, really talking about the very similar thing of knowledge. Now, you're shown all this. How do you know that what you're watching and seeing is actually true? And that itself is a skill. How do you teach an analytical thinking to students, and so that they can question what they're seeing and be able to go, okay, that has some factual evidence in it. I've seen this in other sources. I've seen that. Because the amount of times, geez, you may have found this. I don't know if your kids have ever come up to you and said, Dad, did you know this? And you'd be like, no, I didn't know that. Where have you come across? And they went, saw it on TikTok. Like all the time. All the time. My wife, and again, will regale stories to me about things that she's learned off Facebook. But then I did some research into it myself. 3 billion people consume their news through social media. 3 billion people. Considering there's 8 billion people on the planet, that's a lot of people who are using social media for their news outlets. And it's the skill of, right, how do we get you to find out the treasure versus the trash? It's a thing moving forward. I think it's definitely something we will probably see more of in lessons and more in schools about how we educate and train and upskill people to be able to navigate, the trash and the treasure of social media. And if not, I think it's something we should be doing.
Yeah, and where to go for support. This is the thing as well, isn't it? Like we were saying about don't go to your Snapchat AI bot if you're suffering with anxiety, because I reckon there probably are people, because it's easier. Like there's been evidence to show that. And even that horrific story that you were talking about earlier, that if they're probably scared of letting anybody know that they're struggling, it's going to be far easier if I just type it into a chatbot and see what they say. I'm going to do that first and see what they say, and then I'll go to an adult. Yeah. And this is where we almost need to go down the other road.
Completely agree. So shifting tack now, just sort of wrapping this part up. For any educators or school leaders that have listened and watched today, what's one piece of advice you'd give them about integrating these personal development platforms, YouHQ, into their teaching?
I would say start small. I think the thing is, if you're not doing any of this stuff anyway, so there's some schools that are way ahead and they've embedded YouHQ or they've embedded a similar platform. But for those that aren't measuring well-being, aren't doing those surveys, then just start small, because I think sometimes people think, oh my God, if I do this, I've got to do it every week. But actually, no, that's not the case. Why don't you start off with a small group? Start off with a 1-year group and then roll it up through the school. So I think some people stay away from it because they think of it as a huge task, where actually it's not that big a deal, because you can start small, or you can with us at least. So you can start with a year group. The cost is lower. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing, or biggest bit of advice. And role modelling it. I think getting staff on board, getting your staff to think the way that you want your kids to think, and get them to role model that. So we find the strongest engagement comes from schools where the staff are fully onboarded. They understand why, yes, you're always going to get 10-20% of teachers that don't necessarily believe in something as much as what you do. But that whole onboarding process, we do that for you, or we can help you with that. Obviously, we can't be in the school, but we offer training and everything with all of our packages. So, I would say those are the two sort of key things. Start small and make sure you do everything you can to onboard your staff into that process.
Amazing. Thank you, Jon. A really, really insightful conversation. And thank you for sharing thoughts, knowledge base, and everything else of the great work you and Jez and your other co-founders are doing at YouHQ. If there's people out there that are interested in learning more and want to find out more about it, where is the best place for them to go?
Just go to our website. So youhq.co.uk, YouHQ spelled like that. .co.uk, and then book a demo. We're a small team, so the demo will be myself or Jez, and we can show you a little bit more about the platform and how it works.
Amazing. My last question is, because I'm really interested in this, YouHQ. Where did that come from? What does it mean?
So it came from our creative director. We've got 4 co-founders. It came from Marty. He's our sort of marketing whiz, and it's you, so your space, and it's your headquarters. So when we introduce this to kids, or when we're recommending how schools introduce it, we don't say it's a mental health app. This is your headquarters. This is your private space. This is where you can self-reflect. This is where you can have your personal stuff. This is where you can set your goals. So yeah, YouHQ. Often when we're ringing schools up or we're speaking to people, we say YouHQ, and they always spell it with a U and then HQ. But, if you're looking for our website, it's YOUHQ.
Yeah, we are English. We spell it YOU.
Yeah.
Amazing. Has anyone ever told you it sounds like Disney Pixar ripped you off there with Inside Out? Just saying.
Great film, isn't it?
My kids love it. That and the second one as well.
Yeah.
There you go. There we go. There's your USP for it, just like Inside Out. Amazing. Jon, I really appreciate it again. Really insightful. Love having a conversation about it, and keep doing amazing work with that. As we say, there's enough evidence out there that kids need this, teachers need this. So thank you ever so much for today.
Thank you. It's been great.